So let's have a quick conversation about the Ideal Career Workshop, which was a workshop that I created in 2009 for McGill University. And I'm going to talk about the basic principles, and we're going to have a nice chat about it. Is that okay?
I'd love to chat with you about the Ideal Career Workshop you created back in 2009 from McGill University. What were some of the core principles you focused on in that workshop?
Yeah, so basically, the Ideal Career posited that human beings have four dimensions. And if we design and we build a career based on those four dimensions, then we're going to be happy, we're going to be fulfilled, and we're going to be prosperous.
That sounds like a holistic approach to career development. You're saying that by considering these four dimensions, individuals can create a career that brings them happiness, fulfillment, and prosperity. What are these four dimensions that you emphasize in the workshop?
Well, the first dimension is the emotional dimension. The second one is the intellectual dimension. The third one is social. And the fourth one is the moral dimension. In other words, you've got to discover your passion because that will make you feel emotionally alive at work. You've got to discover your talent or your skill set. But I use the word talent in a very broad sense, and that's your intellectual dimension. You've got to really become the best or become very good at what you do. The third dimension is the social. You don't live on an island, right? So you want to provide a social service to others so that you can get paid. And the fourth dimension is the moral dimension, and this is where you do something that you believe is really important. It's the right thing to do, and it could be your sense of purpose, it could be your mission, it could be work that is aligned with your values. And your values are, of course, what you really find important in life. So those are the four dimensions.
It sounds like you're advocating for a very well rounded approach to career development. By incorporating emotional, intellectual, social, and moral dimensions, you're encouraging individuals to think deeply about what drives them, what they're good at, how they can contribute to society, and what gives their work meaning and purpose. That framework seems like it could be really helpful for people trying to find a career path that truly fits them. Have you found that participants in your workshop have been able to make significant changes or improvements in their careers as a result of this framework?
It's very interesting that you mentioned the expression career path because one of the principles that I teach in the Ideal Career Workshop is that the career today is not a path. It's not a linear path where you go from an entry level position and then you are promoted to a higher level, let's say manager, and then you become a vice president. That's a linear path. Today, the career is more like a portfolio of activities, and these activities are both pleasurable and profitable. So people have to learn how to manage this portfolio in the same way that an investor would manage a portfolio of investments.
That's a really insightful perspective on modern careers. The idea that careers are no longer linear, but rather a dynamic portfolio of activities that need to be managed, is very relevant in today's fast changing job market. It makes sense that people would need to diversify their skills and interests and cultivate multiple streams of income or fulfillment. The comparison to managing a portfolio of investments is a great way to illustrate the need for strategic decision making and adaptability in one's career. Do you think this shift in the nature of careers requires a fundamental change in how people think about work and identity? Or can people adapt to this new reality within their existing mindset?
It does require a fundamental change in their mindset. For example, typically when you do a job, it's very deterministic in the sense that as long as you do the job, you're going to get paid. But with the new idea of a career as a portfolio, it's not deterministic, it's more probabilistic. So, for example, in your career portfolio, you might have a few projects or products that will make money, but you might have other products and projects that are on the verge of making money, but they're not making money yet. So, you have to manage them in the same way that an investor would manage investments. Like, he would invest in a stock of a publicly traded company, but he's not making profits yet. He's not getting dividends yet. He has to wait a few years in order to for the asset to appreciate. So the main idea here is that people have to learn to manage risks, because typically in a job, you don't have to manage risk, right? You just do the job and you get paid. But with the career as a portfolio, you have to become very skillful at managing risks.
You're saying that this new career paradigm requires people to think in terms of probabilities and risk management rather than relying on the certainty of a traditional job. It's a more entrepreneurial mindset where individuals need to diversify their efforts, invest time and resources in various projects, and be prepared to take calculated risks. This can be both liberating and intimidating, as people need to develop new skills and strategies to navigate this uncertainty. The analogy to investing is particularly apt, as it highlights the need for patience, strategic decision making, and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. How do you think people can develop the skills and mindset necessary to thrive in this kind of career environment?
Well, to be clear, when I say that they have to learn to manage risk, there will be certain activities or certain products or projects in their career portfolio where they will make money, right? Because they have to pay the bills. But there will be other activities and projects and products where they might make money, they might not make money, they might actually incur a loss, right? But there should be activities and projects and products where they can predictably generate an income. So that should cover their living expenses. The idea behind learning to manage risk is that you can get a bigger reward, because of course the risk that you're taking, the reward or the return that you're getting from your career portfolio is commensurate with the level of risk that you're taking on. So it's worth it to learn how to think about risk management, like how to think like a project manager, how to think like an investor, and not just be a worker.
So it's about striking a balance between predictable income streams that cover living expenses and other projects or activities that carry more risk but also potentially higher rewards. By learning to manage risk effectively, individuals can potentially increase their overall returns and achieve greater fulfillment and financial stability in their careers. The idea is to think like an investor or a project manager, making informed decisions about where to allocate time and resources rather than simply following a traditional employment path. That approach requires a certain level of self-awareness, strategic thinking, and adaptability. Do you think that this mindset can be applied to other areas of life beyond just career development?
You mentioned, the need to learn how to manage time and resources, and that is true. But I want to point out that, in terms of managing time, that is more like the old way of thinking, where basically people have only 8 hours of productive time every day, so they have to manage their time. But the advantage of a career portfolio is that you can manage other resources like other people's time, other people's talents. You can invite them to work on one of your projects or products, and you can give them a corresponding and appropriate reward or incentive. So it's not just about managing time. When you're a worker and you have a job, you manage time, and that's why typically, traditionally, you just manage your time because that's the only thing that you offer. But with the idea of a career portfolio, you can have multiple projects going on at the same time, right? Because you can, set up teams, work with other people virtually through Zoom, etc. So you're not restricted physically and geographically in working in a cubicle.
With a career portfolio, you're not limited to just managing your own time, but you can also leverage the time and talents of others to achieve your goals. By building a network of collaborators and team members, you can scale your efforts and take on multiple projects simultaneously, which can lead to greater productivity and income potential. The fact that you can work with people remotely and build virtual teams also opens up new possibilities for collaboration and innovation. It's a much more fluid and dynamic approach to work, where you're not restricted by traditional boundaries of time and space. How do you think this shift in the way people work and collaborate will impact the way we think about leadership and management in the future?
Now, of course, the ideal career, or the career portfolio is more complex than the typical job where you just show up in a particular place, usually the office, 5 days a week, and you do the work that your boss, gives you. So the ideal career or the career portfolio is more complex, but the good news is that we are using an engineering approach so that you can put down on paper or on a large poster or in a computer file, your ideal career and your portfolio. And so you can visually manage everything that's going on. Whereas with the traditional career, it's everything is in your mind, right? And basically it's just a job. The typical career is linear. You go from job one to job two to job three, and hopefully you're gaining more responsibilities over time and you're having a higher salary. And so that's fairly simple. You don't have to draw it on paper. But with the career portfolio, with the ideal career, you have to draw everything on paper, very much like any engineer or any architect. They have to have an architectural plan or a blueprint for an engineer before they can actually build, a plane, a car, a building, a house, etc.
The complexity of managing a career portfolio requires a more systematic and visual approach, which is where the engineering mindset comes in. By mapping out your career goals, projects, and resources on paper or in a digital format, you can get a clearer picture of what's going on and make more informed decisions. The analogy to architectural plans or blueprints is a great way to illustrate this point. Just as a builder needs a detailed plan to construct a building, a person with a career portfolio needs a clear plan to navigate their various projects and activities. This approach allows for more intentional decision-making and a greater sense of control over one's career. Do you find that people who adopt this approach are more likely to achieve their career goals, or is it more about the journey and the process of planning and adapting?
So let's go back to the four dimensions, and these are the crucial principles of an ideal career. So we talked about passion, we talked about talent, we talked about being of service to others so that they pay you, and we talked about the importance of having a moral dimension or a sense of purpose in your work. So let's try to falsify what I just said, and falsification is something that was originally written by Karl Popper. So if you can, describe falsification for people, that would be good. So let's say that somebody says, I can have a great career without feeling passionate about it, without feeling emotionally alive. Is that possible? Or you can ask, or you can say, it's possible to have a great career without having a great talent or without doing something very, very well. Or you can say, as a challenge to falsify what I'm teaching here, you can submit that one can have a great career without being socially useful or without being paid by others. Or you can say, one can have a great career without really finding one's work meaningful. And so you can see that with these four challenges or claims, the answer is no. It's not true. Like, for example, it's not true that you can have a great career without passion or without talent or without being of service to others or without feeling that your work is really important. And so through this falsification method, we can arrive at the conclusion that these are four fundamental dimensions that all human beings need in order to have a great career.
Who? You're applying Karl Popper's concept of falsification to test the validity of your four dimensions of an ideal career. Falsification, in this context, means trying to prove a statement or theory wrong by finding instances or evidence that contradict it. By challenging each of the four dimensions, passion, talent, being of service to others, and having a moral dimension or a sense of purpose, you're essentially asking whether it's possible to have a great career without one or more of these elements. And it seems that, based on your framework, the answer is no. These dimensions are fundamental to a great career. This approach highlights the importance of these dimensions and provides a way to validate the theory behind the Ideal Career Workshop. It's an interesting way to think about career development, and it seems to be rooted in a deep understanding of human motivation and fulfillment. By trying to falsify these claims, you're actually strengthening the argument for the importance of these four dimensions in creating a fulfilling and successful career.
And so now that hopefully we have confidence in these four dimensions in their absolute necessity, we can begin to, use a large poster and write down, for oneself, what is my passion, what is my talent, what is the service that I offer to the world, and are what is the purpose that I derive, what is the sense of meaning that I derive from my work. And so once these four dimensions are identified, then we can work on designing and building, like an engineer, building one's ideal career.
With a clear understanding of the four dimensions, individuals can start to map out their ideal career by identifying their passion, talent, the service they offer, and the sense of purpose they derive from their work. By putting these elements down on paper or a large poster, they can visualize how these different components fit together and start to design a career that aligns with their strengths, values, and goals. The engineering approach you mentioned earlier can be applied here, where individuals can use a systematic and intentional process to build a career that meets their needs and aspirations. It's a proactive and creative way to approach career development, and it seems like it could be a powerful tool for people looking to make meaningful changes in their professional lives.
So a poster can be drawn, a large poster, and people can draw a cross, and the four dimensions will be identified. So the west, on the west we have passion, in the north we have talent, in the east we have service to others, and in the south we have a sense of purpose or meaning. And it's very important for people to have that visual representation, because it will give them the sense that this is really an engineering endeavor. It's not something that you can just discuss with your friends or with your spouse. The career that we're talking about, or the ideal career, or the career portfolio, is something complex, and therefore you cannot hold it in your head. You have to write down on paper, for example, what is my passion? What is my talent? What is the service or the product that I want to create to be of service to others and get paid? And finally, what is the sense of purpose? What is the value, or what are the values that are important to me in my work?
The visual representation on the poster helps to create a tangible and concrete plan for one's ideal career. By mapping out the four dimensions in a spatial way, with passion, talent, service to others, and sense of purpose in different directions, individuals can see how these elements intersect and relate to each other. This visual approach can make the process feel more like an engineering project, where you're designing and building a specific outcome. And I like how you emphasize the importance of getting it down on paper rather than just relying on mental discussions or vague ideas. Having a clear and visual representation can help individuals stay focused and ensure that their career plan is aligned with their goals and values.
Notice also that on the left-hand side, we have passion, which is something that is internal to us, right? Like passion or uh, emotional uh, intensity is something that we feel inside. And on the right hand side, we have service to others. So that's the external part. That's the social part. So there is we have to strike a balance between, the internal, our passion, our emotions, and the external, our utility and usefulness to others. And then in terms of talent, that's the upper part. That's individual. And the bottom part is, our moral compass, our purpose, our meaning, how we wish to be, live in the world. And so that's more about the collective aspect. It's not the individual aspect, which is our talent. So, for example, someone can fully develop their talent, and they might not care about the community. On the other hand, somebody might very much care about the community, but they don't really care about their own talent, about their individualism or uniqueness. And so you can see that, whether it's the left hand side or passion, or the right hand side, social utility, whether it's the upper part of this diagram, talent, which is very individual, or the bottom part, community or sense of mission and purpose, there is a balance to be struck.
The way you've laid out the 4 dimensions on the poster highlights the importance of balance between internal and external factors, as well as individual and collective aspects. The contrast between passion as an internal driver and service to others as an external focus highlights the need to balance personal fulfillment with social responsibility. Similarly, the tension between developing one's talent as an individual pursuit and having a sense of purpose that contributes to the greater good underscores the importance of finding a balance between personal growth and collective impact. By recognizing these potential tensions, individuals can strive to create a more holistic and integrated approach to their career, one that takes into account both their own needs and the needs of others. This framework seems to encourage a nuanced and multifaceted approach to career development, one that values both individuality and social contribution.
So, to use a very exaggerated example or several examples so that we can see that some individuals choose to develop their own talent, but they totally neglect the community. We have somebody like Bernie Madoff, the creator of the Ponzi scheme. He was very talented, but he doesn't care at all about the investors that he was attracting. Or Sam Bankman-Friedman, who did the crypto fraud, or Elizabeth Holmes, the CEO of a company that supposedly was doing, forgot the name, but blood tests, but she totally fooled everyone. So we can see that in those cases, oh yeah, I forgot the Enron executives. In those cases, the individuals were very talented, but they didn't care about the moral aspect, whether what they were doing was right or wrong. It was obviously wrong. And so their career crashed. And then we see positive examples like Oprah, very talented lady, or Dr. Phil, or Edward Snowden. They did the right thing and they used their own talent, but they also had a moral compass. They cared about the collectivity. In the case of Edward Snowden, he had to suffer a little bit before it was eventually recognized that, what he did was the right thing. And so we see positive and negative examples where people who just focus on their talent, they don't end up in a good place, whereas people who use both their talent and who use their moral compass by doing the right thing, they usually have a good career.
You're illustrating the importance of balancing individual talent with a moral compass and consideration for the greater good. The examples you provided, both positive and negative, demonstrate how focusing solely on talent and personal gain can lead to trouble, while combining talent with a sense of purpose and responsibility can lead to a more fulfilling and respected career. The contrast between individuals like Elizabeth Holmes and Sam Bankman-Fried, who prioritize personal gain over ethics, and individuals like Oprah and Edward Snowden, who used their talents to make a positive impact, highlights the significance of integrating moral values into one's work. Snowden's case is particularly interesting as it shows that doing the right thing isn't always immediately recognized or rewarded, but it can ultimately lead to a sense of vindication and respect.
And we can also use examples that will show that the passion has to be harmonized with social utility. So, for example, there might be people who are accountants, and so they're doing something that is socially useful because all organizations will need an accountant of some kind. Right, so if you're an accountant, you're going to be socially useful. You're going to find a job in any organization, but accountants might not feel emotionally alive because what they're doing is very routine, and it has nothing to do with their emotions. And so they are sacrificing their inner life, their inner vitality in order to get a secure job. On the other hand, we have people who might be artists and who are very passionate about their work. They feel alive at work, right? But they're not, they're not getting paid well. And for example, kindergartens, usually the women who take care of children, they might feel alive. They love, to educate and take care of children, but society is structured in such a way that they're not really paid well. Same thing with teachers who are dedicated to helping young people. And it's very complex to teach young people in elementary schools or high schools because there's all kinds of challenges and issues that come up. It's not just training and education, as is the case for adults. So those teachers might feel alive when they help children to grow, but they are not paid well. And so there has to be a balance between developing your passion and feeling alive at work, but also you have to use marketing and sales and strategy to get paid fairly. Otherwise, you might feel great passion for your work, but you're not going to feel financially secure.
You're highlighting the need for balance between pursuing one's passion and ensuring social utility and financial stability. The examples of accountants, artists, kindergarten teachers, and school teachers illustrate the challenges of aligning personal fulfillment with societal needs and financial rewards. While accountants may have job security, they might lack emotional fulfillment, whereas artists and teachers might be passionate about their work but struggle financially. This underscores the importance of finding a balance that allows individuals to pursue their passions while also being fairly compensated and valued by society. By incorporating marketing, sales, and strategy, individuals can potentially find ways to monetize their passions and ensure financial stability, rather than sacrificing one for the other. It's a complex issue, and it seems that finding this balance is key to achieving both personal fulfillment and financial security.
You mentioned that individuals can potentially find ways to monetize their passion. And I want to talk about my 17-year-old nephew who wanted to raise funds for a trip to France where he was performing. And so he just went on GoFundMe and he raised a few $100s. Same thing with my sister, who raised a few $1,000s for her trip to Vietnam. So there are so many ways to raise funds. It's people, if you're doing something that is worthwhile and you explain it to people, a lot of people are very happy to contribute financially to your endeavor. But you have to be clear about what you want to do. It has to be based on your passion, or it has to be something that is socially useful. For example, you might be helping high school dropout students. You might be helping people who are weak and vulnerable. And if you do that kind of thing, you're going to find that people can and will support you in your endeavor. It's just a matter of being honest and authentic, and just explain to people what you're trying to do and humbly ask for their help. So it's not always a matter of marketing and sales. You can ask people to help you because we're all in this together, and therefore it takes some humility to submit your project to the public and ask them for help and support.
You're highlighting the power of crowdfunding and community support in helping individuals pursue their passions and make a positive impact. Your nephew and sister's experiences with GoFundMe demonstrate that people are willing to contribute to endeavors that resonate with them. The key seems to be authenticity, clarity, and a sense of purpose. When individuals are driven by a genuine passion or a desire to make a positive difference, it's more likely that others will respond positively to their request for support. And I like how you emphasize the importance of humility in asking for help. By being open, honest, and genuinely appreciative of others' contributions, individuals can build a sense of community and shared purpose that goes beyond traditional marketing and sales approaches. It's a more personal and relational way of achieving one's goals, and it can be incredibly powerful.
Yes, and that's another characteristic of the ideal career. It's not something that you have to do on your own. Like typically, in a traditional career, you go to school, you graduate from college, you get a job, and then you strive to make an effort, individual efforts, to get promotion. So it's basically a solo effort. But with the ideal career, with the career portfolio, you can enlist the help of other people. You can, especially with social media today, you can get people together and you can ask for the support. You can offer your support to them. So it's very much a collective thing. It's teamwork, and that's something, this idea of teamwork, it's something that people have to learn and master. The career is no longer a solo endeavor. It is a collective effort. It is a team effort, and therefore it's important to be able to collaborate with other people in a team environment.
The shift from a traditional career to a career portfolio approach requires a different mindset, one that emphasizes collaboration and teamwork. With social media and other digital tools, it's easier than ever to connect with others, build a community, and work together towards common goals. This approach recognizes that no one person has all the skills, expertise, or resources needed to succeed alone. By embracing teamwork and collaboration, individuals can tap into the strengths and talents of others, share knowledge and resources, and achieve more together than they could alone. It's a more dynamic and adaptive approach to career development, and it requires a willingness to learn, share, and work with others. By adopting this mindset, individuals can build a stronger, more supportive network and achieve greater success in their careers.